January 28, 1671. Night still hangs over Panama City. The streets remain quiet. Merchants sleep behind stone walls. Priests guard church relics beneath candlelight. Families rest inside one of the wealthiest settlements in the Spanish Empire, a city that channels silver, gold, and treasure from across the Pacific world. Then the horizon erupts. Henry Morgan's army crashes through the outer defenses after a brutal march across the Isthmus of Panama. Nearly 1,400 men pour toward the city. Muskets flash in the darkness. Cannon fire shakes the ground. Bells ring from church towers as terrified residents flood into the streets. Within hours, smoke blankets entire districts. Parents drag their children through burning alleyways. Soldiers abandon collapsing fortifications. Priests carry crucifixes and sacred relics away from the advancing attackers. Horses scream inside stables, consumed by fire. Then the explosions begin. Contemporary witnesses describe blasts so powerful that they scatter debris across entire neighborhoods. Flames leap from building to building. Thick black smoke swallows the skyline. By dawn, huge sections of the city lie in ruins. This was not a border raid. This was the destruction of Spain's most important Pacific settlement. Spanish officials later accuse Morgan's forces of torture, looting, and systematic brutality. Survivors describe prisoners being beaten for information about hidden valuables. Colonial reports claim that the attackers hunted for buried wealth while terrified civilians searched the wreckage for missing family members. The exact cause of the fire remains disputed even today. Some Spanish officials blame Morgan directly. Others argue that defenders ignited powder stores during the chaos. Historians still debate responsibility, but one fact remains beyond dispute. Panama burned, and thousands of lives changed forever. What makes the event so disturbing is not the violence itself. 17th century warfare produced violence everywhere. Europe drowned in it. The Caribbean thrived on it. The disturbing part came later, because the man standing at the center of the destruction did not disappear into a prison cell. He did not face execution. He did not spend the rest of his life hiding from justice. History transformed him into a hero. By sunrise, one of the richest cities in the Americas lay in ruins. But the most disturbing part of the story was not what Morgan destroyed. It was what happened afterward. Most people meet Henry Morgan long after the fires of Panama have faded. They meet him on a bottle. They see a smiling pirate beneath a feathered hat, a mischievous adventurer, a charismatic rogue who outsmarted empires and sailed away with treasure. Tourism campaigns celebrate him. Popular culture romanticizes him. Centuries of storytelling have transformed him into one of the most recognizable pirates in history. The image feels familiar. It also conceals something far darker, because the historical record tells a very different story. Only 3 years after Panama's destruction, King Charles II knighted Henry Morgan in 1674. The same man whom Spanish diplomats accused of devastating cities and violating peace agreements crossed the Atlantic, entered royal circles, and received one of England's highest honors. The transformation happened with astonishing speed. Outlaw became gentleman, raider became statesman, destroyer became Sir Henry Morgan. Soon afterward, authorities appointed him Lieutenant Governor of Jamaica. He helped administer the very colony that had launched many of the expeditions responsible for Spain's diplomatic outrage. This was not a rumor whispered in Caribbean taverns. Official correspondence between Spanish ambassadors and English authorities documents repeated complaints about Morgan's actions. Diplomats demanded accountability. They describe treaty violations, stolen property, and attacks that continued despite efforts to establish peace between the two crowns. Yet the punishment never arrived. The contradiction sits in plain sight. On one side stand Spanish reports describing torture used to locate hidden wealth. On the other stands a royal government rewarding the accused commander with power, status, and legitimacy. Supporters argue that Morgan served England's interests during a chaotic struggle for control of the Caribbean. Critics reach a different conclusion. They ask a simpler question. If another nation's commander had destroyed one of England's richest cities, would the crown have responded with a knighthood? That question becomes even more uncomfortable when we examine the sources closest to Morgan's campaigns. Witnesses did not describe a romantic pirate adventure. They described fear, ransom, fire, and suffering, measured in human lives rather than in stolen gold. The legend survives because legends simplify. The documents do not. And the deeper historians dig into Morgan's rise, the harder it becomes to separate the celebrated hero from the man who stood behind the smoke. The man remembered as a pirate hero may have been something far more dangerous, a criminal whose greatest achievement was convincing history to forget. Sometime around 1655, a young man from Wales arrives in the Caribbean. No official record captures the moment. No diary describes his thoughts. No witness leaves behind a detailed account of his first glimpse of the tropical coastline. That absence matters, because within 2 decades, Henry Morgan will become one of the most feared men in the Atlantic world. The mystery begins with what historians do not know. Most evidence places Morgan's birth around 1635 in Wales. Beyond that, certainty quickly dissolves. Some accounts claim he arrived as an indentured servant. Others suggest he traveled voluntarily in search of opportunity. The surviving records refuse to provide a clear answer. Yet the world awaiting him leaves no ambiguity at all. England and Spain are engaged in a long struggle for wealth, territory, and influence. Sugar plantations expand across the Caribbean. Merchant fleets carry fortunes across dangerous seas. Colonial governors constantly search for ways to weaken their rivals. Violence becomes a business model. Morgan enters that system at exactly the right moment. In 1655, England captures Jamaica from Spain. Over the following years, the island transforms into one of England's most valuable colonial possessions. At its center stands Port Royal. The town looks prosperous by daylight. Ships crowd the harbor. Merchants negotiate contracts. Tavern owners welcome sailors returning from sea. Money changes hands everywhere. Then night falls. Gamblers, smugglers, thieves, and privateers flood the streets. Contemporary observers describe drunken brawls, prostitution, corruption, and violence on a scale that shocks even hardened travelers. Later generations will call Port Royal the wickedest city in the world. For ambitious men, however, it offers something even more valuable: protection. Governor Thomas Modiford understands England's position in the Caribbean. He lacks sufficient naval forces to challenge Spain directly. Instead, he relies on privateers. The arrangement appears legal. The reality remains murkier. Modiford issues letters of marque, official commissions authorizing private captains to attack enemy shipping and settlements during wartime. The documents transform raiders into instruments of imperial policy. Men who might otherwise face execution as pirates suddenly operate under government approval. Morgan learns the lesson quickly. Success brings rewards. Results erase questions. Throughout the 1660s, he participates in increasingly ambitious raids against Spanish targets. Each victory expands his reputation. Each success attracts more followers. Experienced sailors join his expeditions because Morgan consistently delivers what matters most: money. Then comes Portobelo. The attack begins before dawn on July 11, 1668. Portobelo stands among Spain's most important ports in the Americas. Thick walls protect the harbor. Cannons guard the approaches. Spanish commanders trust their defenses. Morgan attacks anyway. His force overwhelms outlying positions and pushes toward the city's fortifications. What follows becomes one of the most controversial episodes associated with his career. Alexander Exquemelin, a Dutch surgeon who sailed among the buccaneers and later published The Buccaneers of America, describes a horrifying tactic. According to his account, Morgan's men forced captured monks and nuns to carry scaling ladders toward Spanish defenses, while defenders hesitated to fire upon their own clergy. Historians continue to debate portions of Exquemelin's work. Some details remain difficult to verify. Others align closely with independent evidence. That uncertainty creates a trap for anyone studying Morgan. Dismiss Exquemelin entirely, and large portions of Caribbean history disappear. Accept every claim without question, and skepticism vanishes. Yet even critics acknowledge a broader reality. Morgan's campaigns consistently produce reports of extraordinary brutality, and the reports come from multiple directions. Spanish officials describe devastation. Colonial records document ransom demands. Eyewitness chroniclers record violence. The pattern repeats. The consistency matters. Random accusations usually vary. Fabricated stories often contradict one another. Yet across decades, among different witnesses, and on opposing sides of the conflict, descriptions of Morgan's methods frequently point toward the same conclusion. Fear was not an accident. Fear was a weapon. By 1668, Morgan commands one of the most effective raiding forces in the Caribbean. Wealth flows into Port Royal. Political support remains intact. Governor Modiford continues to back successful expeditions despite growing diplomatic tensions. Morgan has learned something profoundly dangerous. The crown rewards results, not morality. And soon he will discover just how far that protection extends. The people of Portobelo wake to an ordinary morning. Merchants prepare inventories. Dock workers move cargo along the waterfront. Church bells echo across the harbor. Spanish officers inspect fortifications that have protected the city for decades. Nothing appears unusual. Then lookouts spot ships approaching the coast. Within hours, panic spreads through the settlement. Cannons roar across the harbor. Smoke rolls over defensive walls. Morgan's men storm positions that Spanish commanders once considered secure. The assault moves with shocking speed. Every successful defense collapses into another retreat. Then the siege becomes something worse. Alexander Exquemelin's The Buccaneers of America provides one of the most detailed eyewitness accounts of Morgan's campaigns. Exquemelin sailed among the buccaneers himself. He witnessed their methods firsthand. Years later, he described prisoners being beaten for information, civilians being threatened for ransom, and captives being subjected to punishments designed to break resistance rather than gather military intelligence. One passage stands out. Exquemelin describes interrogations that relied on fire, rope, and prolonged suffering to force victims to reveal hidden wealth. This was not battlefield violence. This was organized coercion. Critics question some of Exquemelin's claims. Historians continue to debate individual details, yet Spanish colonial records describe similar patterns. Official complaints sent across the Atlantic report torture, ransom demands, and widespread destruction. Different witnesses, different motivations. remarkably similar accusations. The pattern becomes impossible to ignore. And Portobelo is only the beginning. Success attracts followers. Success also creates expectations. Morgan's men do not sail for ideology. They sail for profit. Every expedition requires larger rewards than the last. Every victory demands another target. Violence becomes self-sustaining. In 1669, Morgan launches another major campaign against Spanish settlements around Lake Maracaibo in present-day Venezuela. Once again, ordinary communities experience the familiar sequence: normal life, sudden attack, devastation. Spanish reports describe homes being looted, settlements being abandoned, and civilians fleeing advancing raiders. Families leave behind property accumulated across generations. Entire communities scatter into the surrounding countryside, searching for safety that often never comes. The numbers tell their own story. Thousands of people across the Caribbean endure displacement, economic ruin, or direct violence connected to the campaigns of privateering forces operating under Morgan's command. Some lose homes, others lose livelihoods. Many lose far more. Yet Morgan's reputation continues to grow. That contradiction forms one of the darkest elements of the story. Every successful raid increases suffering. Every successful raid also increases prestige. Compare that to the victims left behind. A merchant spends 20 years building a business in a Spanish colonial port. One attack erases everything in a single afternoon. A family saves enough money to purchase land. Raiders arrive. The savings vanish. A child survives a siege and spends the rest of his life remembering the day soldiers dragged prisoners through burning streets. History records Morgan's victories. It rarely records those names, and still, the violence escalates. Ship logs, colonial correspondence, and official Spanish reports document raid after raid across the Caribbean basin. The locations change, the consequences do not. Fear spreads faster than Morgan's ships. In some settlements, rumors of his approach trigger evacuations before a single sail appears on the horizon. Residents flee because previous survivors have already described what follows resistance. That reaction reveals something important. Morgan does not merely attack cities, he attacks expectations. People stop believing walls can protect them. They stop believing distance can protect them. Eventually, they stop believing anyone will come to help them. That psychological impact may have exceeded the physical destruction. By the late 1660s, Morgan has become more than a privateer captain. He has become a symbol. Spanish officials mention his name in diplomatic correspondence with increasing alarm. Colonial governors report his movements carefully. Merchants track rumors of his fleet because entire fortunes depend on knowing where he might strike next. The empire has created a weapon. The weapon works, and every successful deployment produces more suffering than the last. Yet despite the bloodshed, Morgan remains protected, which raises an uncomfortable question. Who benefited from the terror? February 1671. The smoke from Panama still hangs over the ruins. Survivors search collapsed buildings for missing relatives. Spanish officials compile damage reports. Messengers carry news across the Atlantic, describing one of the most devastating attacks in the history of Spain's American empire. The reports reach London, and for a brief moment, it appears Henry Morgan's career is over. The timing could hardly be worse. Just months earlier, England and Spain had signed the Treaty of Madrid in 1670. The agreement sought to reduce conflict in the Caribbean and establish a framework for peace between two exhausted imperial rivals. Diplomats had spent years negotiating its terms. Then Panama burned. Spanish officials react with fury. From their perspective, the situation appears obvious. England had agreed to peace. Morgan had attacked anyway. One of Spain's wealthiest cities lay in ruins because an English-backed commander ignored the spirit, if not the letter, of a major diplomatic agreement. The complaints arrive quickly. Spanish ambassadors demand accountability. Colonial authorities send detailed reports describing destruction, looting, and treaty violations. Official correspondence between Madrid and London fills with accusations and demands for justice. For once, Morgan seems vulnerable. The pressure becomes impossible to ignore. English authorities issue orders recalling him. Government officials publicly distance themselves from the attack. The language sounds serious. The response appears decisive. A rational observer would expect punishment to follow. After all, empires protect treaties because treaties protect stability. Without consequences, agreements become meaningless. For a moment, the story appears headed toward a predictable ending. It does not. Morgan returns to England. He does not enter a prison. He does not face a public trial. He does not spend years defending himself against charges from outraged diplomats. Instead, something extraordinary happens. The political winds shift. To understand why, we need to look beyond Morgan himself. King Charles II faces a complicated strategic reality. Spain remains a rival power. England seeks greater influence throughout the Caribbean. Colonial expansion requires men willing to take risks that governments cannot openly endorse. Morgan has already demonstrated his value. He weakens Spanish authority. He disrupts Spanish trade. He creates opportunities that benefit English interests. Officially, governments condemn such actions when diplomacy requires restraint. Unofficially, success creates leverage. That contradiction sits at the heart of the mystery. The Crown condemns the consequences. The Crown benefits from the results. The documentary record reveals the tension clearly. Spanish diplomats continue demanding justice. English officials continue managing the political fallout. Letters move back and forth across Europe. Complaints accumulate. Explanations follow. Yet nothing changes the outcome. In 1674, King Charles II knights Henry Morgan. The decision transforms the entire story. Because a knighthood is not an accident. A knighthood is not bureaucratic oversight. A knighthood is a public statement. The Crown knows exactly what Morgan represents, and it rewards him anyway. Soon afterward, authorities appoint him Lieutenant Governor of Jamaica. The promotion proves even more revealing. Morgan does not merely receive forgiveness. He receives authority. The former raider now helps govern one of England's most important Caribbean possessions. The man accused of devastating Spanish settlements now participates in administering imperial policy. Imagine how that decision appears from Madrid. A commander destroys Panama. Diplomats demand punishment. The responsible government grants him honors instead. No wonder Spanish officials viewed the outcome as a scandal. And yet another question emerges. What if Morgan's personal story distracts from something larger? Because governments rarely reward individuals solely out of gratitude. Governments reward usefulness. Morgan's campaigns generated violence, but they also advanced strategic goals. They weakened competitors. They expanded influence. They shifted power balances throughout the region. Perhaps that explains the contradiction. Perhaps it does not, because even that explanation leaves uncomfortable gaps. If the Panama attack truly embarrassed English authorities, why elevate the man responsible? If Morgan violated expectations, why trust him with political power? If diplomacy mattered, why celebrate the individual who threatened it? The official record provides pieces of the answer. It never provides the whole picture. And that may be the most revealing detail of all. The greatest mystery was never how Morgan committed his crimes. It was why the people in power rewarded him for them. At this point, a reasonable objection emerges. Perhaps Henry Morgan was never a pirate at all. Perhaps modern audiences judge a 17th century man by 21st century standards. Perhaps the accusations exaggerate reality. Perhaps Morgan simply operated within the legal framework of his time. Many historians make exactly that argument, and it deserves serious consideration. The distinction between piracy and privateering mattered enormously in the 17th century. Pirates attacked anyone for personal gain. Governments considered them criminals. Privateers operated under letters of marque issued by recognized authorities. Those documents authorized attacks against enemy shipping and hostile settlements during periods of conflict. On paper, the difference appears straightforward. In practice, the Caribbean rarely followed neat legal boundaries. England and Spain spent decades drifting between war, peace, unofficial conflict, and diplomatic uncertainty. Colonial governors often acted faster than governments in Europe. Communication crossed the Atlantic slowly. Months could pass before officials learned that political circumstances had changed. Within that environment, Morgan's defenders find strong arguments. Governor Thomas Modiford issued legitimate commissions. Spanish sources possessed obvious reasons to exaggerate English brutality. Alexander Exquemelin's writings contain claims that historians continue to debate today. Some accusations may have grown more dramatic through retelling. Some witness testimony may have reflected anger rather than objectivity. Those possibilities matter. Any honest investigation must acknowledge them. But this is where the explanation begins to struggle. Because even if we discard the most extreme allegations, the broader pattern remains. Morgan repeatedly led attacks against civilian settlements. Morgan repeatedly generated diplomatic crises. Morgan repeatedly accumulated wealth and influence through organized violence. Those facts survive, regardless of how historians interpret individual accounts. Then we encounter an even larger problem: the knighthood. The legal defense argument explains why Morgan avoided execution. It does not fully explain why he received honors. Compare that to ordinary privateers whose careers faded after conflicts ended. Most disappeared into obscurity. Governments used them when convenient and discarded them when circumstances changed. Morgan followed a different path. The Crown elevated him. The Crown trusted him. The Crown transformed him into part of the establishment. That outcome forces us into what historians sometimes call a rational trap. Every explanation works, just not completely. Privateering explains the legality. Imperial rivalry explains the opportunity. Political necessity explains part of the reward. Yet none of those explanations fully resolves the contradiction at the center of the story. Why did destruction create prestige? Why did violence create authority? Why did a man associated with one of the most controversial attacks in Caribbean history emerge stronger than before? The evidence offers possible answers. It never offers certainty. And perhaps that uncertainty reveals more than certainty ever could. Even if every accusation were exaggerated, one fact remains impossible to ignore. Men were rewarded for devastation because devastation served a larger purpose. Step back from Henry Morgan for a moment. Pull away from the burning cities, the ransom demands, and the diplomatic scandals. The view changes immediately. The Caribbean no longer looks like a collection of islands. It looks like a battlefield stretching thousands of miles across the sea. By the late 17th century, England, Spain, France, and the Dutch Republic compete relentlessly for wealth and territory. Merchant fleets transport silver, sugar, tobacco, and enslaved human beings across oceans. Every convoy represents profit. Every colony represents strategic advantage. Every rival empire represents a target. Within that system, Morgan becomes easier to understand, not because his actions become less brutal, but because they become predictable. Jamaica sits at the center of the struggle. England captures the island in 1655 and spends decades strengthening its position. Spanish authorities want their influence restored. English officials want their influence expanded. Both sides understand the stakes. Control the Caribbean, and immense wealth follows. Lose it, and rivals gain the advantage. Governments cannot always wage open war. Diplomacy, treaties, and political realities create limitations. Private violence solves that problem. A governor issues a commission. A privateer launches a raid. A city burns. Officials deny responsibility. The empire still benefits. Morgan does not invent that system. He masters it. And he is far from alone. Across the Caribbean, countless captains operate within similar arrangements. Some attack shipping, others strike settlements. All contribute to a larger machinery that converts violence into political leverage. The human cost rarely appears in official celebrations. It should. Spanish civilians lose homes. Indigenous communities face displacement. Enslaved people endure exploitation under competing imperial powers that view human lives as economic assets. The suffering extends far beyond any single raid. That reality changes the story completely. The question is no longer whether Henry Morgan was a hero or a villain. The question is why empires consistently reward men like him. Because the deeper we examine the evidence, the harder it becomes to treat Morgan as an isolated figure. His career reflects a system that values results above morality and expansion above human consequences. That may explain why his reputation survived. Empires often preserve stories that justify their success. They rarely preserve stories that expose the full cost. Morgan remains visible because his victories fit a useful narrative. Many of his victims disappear because their suffering does not. And that leads to the darkest possibility yet. Perhaps history did not hide Morgan's crimes. Perhaps it simply buried them beneath something even larger. The fires in Panama eventually die. The smoke clears. The dead are buried. Trade routes reopen. Governments sign new agreements. Empires continue moving forward as though nothing happened. History often works that way. The people who suffer most rarely control the story that survives. Henry Morgan dies in 1688. He does not die in disgrace. He does not die in exile. Colonial authorities honor him with a state funeral in Jamaica. Church bells ring. Officials pay their respects. One of the most controversial men in Caribbean history receives the recognition reserved for respected public figures. Then nature delivers its own strange epilogue. In 1692, a massive earthquake strikes Port Royal. Much of the city collapses into the sea within minutes. Thousands die. The same settlement that helped launch Morgan's rise disappears beneath the water. Many survivors interpret the catastrophe as divine judgment. History offers other explanations. The symbolism remains difficult to ignore, yet even that disaster fails to erase Morgan's legacy. Centuries later, his image appears on bottles, advertisements, and tourism campaigns. Millions recognize the name. Few remember the people who fled burning streets in Panama. Fewer still remember the civilians whose lives were shattered during the campaigns that built his reputation. That contrast should trouble us, because it reveals how power shapes memory. Morgan's story survives not because it is simple, but because it serves a purpose. It transforms conquest into adventure. It transforms violence into legend. It transforms a deeply uncomfortable history into something easier to celebrate. And perhaps that is the final lesson. Empires rarely erase the men who served them. They celebrate them, and that may be the darkest truth of all. Henry Morgan did not escape history. History worked very hard to make sure he looked like a hero.